Yeah, I chose the Sony a7S III as my new vlogging camera. But honestly, that's not what I chose first. But I'll tell you why I ended up making this decision. One thing I've always stood by is the fact that it's important to choose the best camera for the type of work that you do. So I've been using the Canon EOS R for the last year for all of my vlogs here on YouTube, and it's been a great camera that has worked really well for me. But there were a lot of things I wasn't crazy about, specifically the 4K crop. So I knew no matter what, I wanted to replace my EOS R, and I wanted to get one of the new cameras that was coming out. I had the option between the R6, the R5, and the a7S III. All tremendous cameras, but to me, there were basically three major things that led me to choose the a7S III over the R5 or the R6. Number one, and absolutely the most important factor that led me to choose the a7S III was reliability. And it's funny because for the last bunch of years, Canon has been the most reliable camera ever. The EOS R was super reliable, and every Canon that I've owned before that, including the C200s that we have been very reliable and have worked great. Sony, over the last bunch of years, has been known as the camera company that kind of has some reliability issues. The a7S and the a7S II and even the a7 III and so many of the cameras that have been coming out recently have always had incredible specs, but reliability was an issue. They had overheating issues, which has really, I think, hurt them, but they decided to go a different route this time. The R5 and the R6 were introduced at the same time, and they had unbelievably impressive specs. Specifically, the R5 shot 8K and had 4K 120 and 240 by 1080, just incredible specs in a camera. The problem is the camera really couldn't handle it at all, and that has shown up quite a bit online. It doesn't matter if the camera can perform unbelievably. If it actually can't perform consistently without issues, to me that's not even a consideration in my opinion. I want a camera, especially when it comes to my vlog camera that I carry around with me everywhere, to be reliable. It needs to be able to work every single time that I pick up the camera and use it. So to me, it really went down to the Canon R6 or the Sony a7S III. So after researching the R6 a little bit more and realizing that the reliability issues with the R6 did not seem nearly as bad as the R5, presumably because they obviously don't have that 8K sensor, so it could handle 4K and handle all that a little bit better. So I figured that might be a camera that might work for me. But it led me to the second thing, which was a big factor in me choosing the a7S III, and that was unlimited recording time. Now, to most people, I realize this is not unbelievably important because the truth is most people don't really record on a regular basis more than 30 minutes. But for the type of content I create, it actually is very important because I do it a lot. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know that I'm a big fan of creating a lot of content for me as a personal brand, and whether that be on YouTube or LinkedIn or any other social platform, I like to record a lot of the stuff that I do on a regular basis. One of those things being meetings or presentations where it's maybe an hour and a half long worth of me talking and going over stuff so I can pull content from it to create things. I also create a lot of podcasts for myself, and being able to have unlimited recording time is very important to me. I like being able to hit record and know that I can let it run the entire time, and at the end of it, I get one file that is an hour and a half long or however long it is, and I never miss any moments. So right away, the R6 kind of became not really a consideration to me as well. But I figured, you know what? Maybe that's not the end of the world, and I'll actually just get the R6 because it's cheaper. I already have Canon lenses, and I guess I could just make do with having the not unlimited recording time, and we'll just, see how it works. So I got the R6. It was actually a great camera. The stability was really good. The camera looked good. The quality was good. The color was great. It's Canon, so it always is. But I quickly realized that one of the biggest things that I use a vlogging camera for is obviously capturing a little bit of everything that I'm doing on a regular basis. And more times than not, lighting is not necessarily something that I have with me for vlogging. There are a lot of situations I get into when I am vlogging or maybe even just filming stuff for home video stuff with my family. There are so many times that lighting is just not ideal. I don't obviously carry lighting around with me, and I don't create lighting just specifically for these videos, but I found a lot of times on the trip that I took the R6 on, low light was actually something I deal with a lot, and it's actually a pretty serious consideration for me. I don't need things to be flawless. Obviously, if there's a little bit of noise in an image, it's okay, but at the same time, there are a lot of situations that I would use the R6 in and just notice that it was a lot noisier than I hoped that it would be, and it wasn't even at that high of ISO. No question about it, Sony has always been known as the king of low light. They did it with the A7S, they did it with the A7S II, and the A7S III is no exception. Because of the lower megapixel count, these things are just incredible for low light. And not that I always care about shooting in 10,000 ISO or 20,000 ISO, but being able to is actually a pretty amazing thing to have. So I still stand by the fact that you should actually light things more than you should worry about a camera being able to shoot in crazy high ISOs, because light looks better than just high ISO. But because the camera needs to work for what I'm doing, it's actually a pretty great thing to have because of the fact that I don't always have good lighting. So reliability was super important, unlimited recording time was really important, and low light was super important, all of only which the A7S III did well. But then if I continue to talk about some of the things that I love, it just continues to be even more and more reasons why I think the A7S III is such an impressive overall camera. Taking a look at dynamic range, how good can a camera do with super brights and super darks in the same shot? This camera, the A7S III, just has mind-boggling dynamic range for a camera that you can carry around that is portable. I was never super impressed with the dynamic range of the EOS R, but it basically worked for what I needed from a vlog perspective. But after having a camera like this in my hands for the last week or so, it's been amazing to be able to pull back and recover some things on this camera that the other Canon didn't even come close to. The dynamic range that you get from S-Log on the A7S III is ridiculous, and some of the harshest lighting situations were still made usable, and it just is crazy to me. After using the A7S III for a little bit, I came back and looked at the R6 again and tried some of the same lighting situations, and I could not believe just how small the dynamic range felt in comparison to the A7S III. Another thing I love about this camera is the fact that I can actually charge it from USB-C directly from a USB power bank, which I think is pretty awesome, and I think and wish that every camera had that, but it doesn't. As I carry around a camera all day with me when I'm vlogging, it's really nice being able to just plug it into USB-C and let it charge the internal battery on the camera rather than having to swap out batteries constantly and recharge batteries constantly on the go. And anytime I'm not using the camera, I can just plug it in and just let it charge. And then you kind of get the impression that you get a lot better battery life than you even need to by not having to constantly recharge batteries. I think it's really convenient, especially if I'm recording some sort of long-form conversation, once again with that unlimited recording time, a meeting for example, or a presentation, a keynote where I'm talking for 90 minutes. Being able to just plug it into power and not have to worry about it going dead, pretty darn convenient, I gotta say. All in all, for me, the A7S III just made so much sense, and even though it's a little bit more expensive than I kind of would prefer to spend on a vlogging camera, this camera, the A7S III, is the first one that I literally feel like there are zero excuses for me to use that the camera can't handle. I always had to worry about unlimited recording time. That's no longer a problem. Low light was an issue. That's no longer a problem. Reliability could have been an issue. That's no longer a problem. 4K full frame with no crop whatsoever. That's no longer a problem. Everything about the camera checks every single box that I actually always have wanted in a vlogging camera, and this is the first one ever that actually does it all. So I gotta say, Sony, you made quite the camera.